Wednesday, July 2. Moses is born. Read Exodus chapter 2, verses 1 to 10. What role did God's providence and protection play in Moses' birth story? Exodus chapter 2, beginning at verse 1. And a man of the house of Levi went and took as a wife a daughter of Levi. So the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, daubed it with asphalt and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister stood afar off to know what would be done to him. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. So she had compassion on him, and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the maiden went and called the child's mother. Then the Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. And the child grew, and she brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. So she called his name Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." The historical background of Moses' birth and life is thrilling because he lived during the time of the famous Egyptian 18th dynasty. One king during his dynasty, Thutmose III, called the Napoleon of Egypt, is considered one of the most famous pharaohs of ancient Egypt. Though under a death sentence at birth, as we read in Exodus chapter 1, verse 22, so Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, "Every son who is born you shall cast into the river, and every daughter you shall save alive." Moses was born as a special son. The Hebrew word tob, T-O-B, literally good, is also used in chapter 2 and verse 2. Let's look at that again. So the woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. The Hebrew term describes more than external beauty. This word is used, for example, in characterizing God's work during creation week, when he declared everything was good, even very good, as you read in Genesis chapter 1, verse 4, "And God saw the light that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness." And verse 10, "And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called seas, and God saw that it was good." And verse 31, "Then God saw everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the 6th day." As a new creation, this good child will, according to God's plan, become the adult who will lead the Hebrews out of their bondage. At this baby's birth, especially under such dire circumstances, who could have envisioned his future? Nevertheless, God will fulfill his words to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He covenanted with them that he would give their descendants the promised land, as we read in Exodus chapter 2, verses 24 and 25. So God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them. And yes, he would use this Tob infant decades later to do just that. Until then, the Egyptian princess Hatshepsut adopted Moses as her son. The name given to Moses has an Egyptian origin, meaning son of or born of, as reflected in the names of Ahmose, son of Ak, or Thutmose, son of Troth. His name is thus rendered in Hebrew as Mosheh, M-O-S-H-E-H, namely, drawn out. His life was miraculously spared when he was drawn out of the river. We know only a few things about his early life. After being miraculously saved and adopted by Hatshepsut, Moses lived for his first 12 years with his original family, as you read in verses 7 to 9 of chapter 2 in Exodus. Then his sister said to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call a nurse for you from the Hebrew woman, that she may nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." So the maiden went and called the child's mother. Then Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. And Ellen White writes about this in Patriarchs and Prophets, page 244. She kept the boy as long as she could, but was obliged to give him up when he was about 12 years old. End of quote. Moses then received the best Egyptian education, all in order to prepare him to be the next Pharaoh of Egypt, as you read in page 245. At the court of Pharaoh, Moses received the highest civil and military training. The monarch had determined to make his adopted grandson his successor on the throne, and the youth was educated for his high station. End of quote. How fascinating that ultimately so much of this education would be useless for, or even work against, what really mattered, the knowledge of God and of his truth. And so to finish today, how much are you learning that is ultimately useless for what really matters?
Wednesday, July 2. Moses is born. While this decree was in full force, a son was born to Amram and Jochebed, devout Israelites of the tribe of Levi. The babe was a goodly child, and the parents, believing that the time of Israel's release was drawing near and that God would raise up a deliverer for his people, determined that their little one should not be sacrificed. Faith in God strengthened their hearts, and they were not afraid of the king's commandment. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 23. The mother succeeded in concealing the child for 3 months. Then, finding that she could no longer keep him safely, she prepared a little ark of rushes, making it watertight by means of slime and pitch, and laying the babe therein, she placed it among the flags at the river's bank. She dared not remain to guard it, lest the child's life and her own should be forfeited. But his sister, Miriam, lingered near, apparently indifferent, but anxiously watching to see what would become of her little brother. And there were other watchers. The mother's earnest prayers had committed her child to the care of God, and angels, unseen, hovered above his lowly resting place. Angels directed Pharaoh's daughter thither. Her curiosity was excited by the little basket, and as she looked upon the beautiful child within, she read the story at a glance. The tears of the babe awakened her compassion, and her sympathies went out to the unknown mother who had resorted to this means to preserve the life of her precious little one. She determined that he should be saved. She would adopt him as her own. Patriarchs and Prophets, pages 242 and 243. God had heard the mother's prayers. Her faith had been rewarded. It was with deep gratitude that she entered upon her now safe and happy task. She faithfully improved her opportunity to educate her child for God. She felt confident that he had been preserved for some great work, and she knew that he must soon be given up to his royal mother to be surrounded with influences that would tend to lead him away from God. All this rendered her more diligent and careful in his instruction than in that of her other children. She endeavored to imbue his mind with the fear of God and the love of truth and justice, and earnestly prayed that he might be preserved from every corrupting influence. She showed him the folly and sin of idolatry and early taught him to bow down and pray to the living God, who alone could hear him and help him in every emergency. She kept the boy as long as she could, but was obliged to give him up when he was about 12 years old. From his humble cabin home, he was taken to the royal palace, to the daughter of Pharaoh, and he became her son. Yet even here he did not lose the impressions received in childhood. The lessons learned at his mother's side could not be forgotten. They were a shield from the pride, the infidelity, and the vice that flourished amid the splendor of the court. Patriarchs and Prophets, pages 243 and 244.
And remember, God is always faithful.